Good evening, and thank you all for taking the time to join us. Before we begin our program, a few housekeeping items. Firstly, thank you to Katie O'Dare for your guidance and tremendous help in coordinating tonight's program. We extend our thanks and appreciation to HUPD, Securitas, Cambridge Police Department, Harvard Facilities and Operations. We thank the Ambassador's team, the New England Israeli Consulate's team, for their coordination and willingness to be here tonight. We know that emotions run high. We respectfully ask that all of our participants commit to helping ensure a smooth, respectful, and productive evening. There will be time for questions and answers at the end of the program, and we ask that you hold your comments and questions until then. Please do not disrupt our speakers, presenters, and certainly the film presentation. The film is a difficult one to watch. We are grateful to have 3 mental health professionals in the audience available for anyone who needs immediate attention or who would like to connect with them tonight or later on. They are sitting, and they'll move right up here. In case of an emergency, please exit through the 2 fire doors up the top of the steps, and in an extreme emergency, through this door as well. I also need to just let you know that the first half of the program, up until the film, is being recorded. I now turn it over to Harvard Chabad Student President Ben Landau.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Elkie said, I'm Ben, and I'm the president of the Undergraduate Board of Harvard Chabad. I wrote my application to Harvard about the concept, with great power comes great responsibility. This concept has been highlighted here at Harvard to a level that I did not internalize back then. The gravity of Harvard is often lost on myself and many of my peers. But the amazing privilege that we have of being here is naturally intertwined with an incredible responsibility to hold ourselves and our community to the highest standard, to always seek the truth, to think with reason, and to fight for justice. Today, we benefit from this power, and we also bear responsibility for being a part of this institution. I want to thank the ambassador and his team for being here today. And I want to thank Rabbi Zarchi, Elkie, and Harvard Chabad for your incredible leadership and support. To have a strong Jewish home on this campus is more important now than ever, and events like this have provided crucial opportunities to learn and to embrace our responsibility to defend the truth and advocate for justice. It is my pleasure to introduce Israel's Consul General to New England, Meron Reuben.
Thank you and good evening. It's always wonderful to hear such erudite young people and know that they will be the future leaders of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be very brief. The compilation of what you are going to be seeing this evening is, as was mentioned, very, very difficult. It's difficult to see. If you need to, I would definitely put your eyes down. I unfortunately have seen it too many times. But I thank everybody, and first and foremost Harvard Chabad for the organizing of this event, and everybody else who has been involved, because it is incredibly important, ladies and gentlemen, to bear witness. Too many people began to doubt that something like this ever happened within hours of it happening. And I think this is what we are hoping that you see and you take back with you. I think for the whole state of Israel and those connected with it around the world. This has been an incredibly difficult period. And what happened on October the 7th is what brought about this change. I can only thank you for being here, because bearing witness is never easy. And I hope that after seeing this and listening to those involved, you will understand what we faced and why we are facing it. Thank you very much.
But
Now I want to introduce Ravid, who's an Israeli student at the college and the student representative on the university's Committee to Combat Anti-Semitism.
I feel. Thank you. Welcome, Ambassador. My name is Ravid, and I'm a third-year student at Harvard College. For nearly 5 years, I served as a spokesperson in the IDF, and I'm heartbroken and shattered to share that 3 of my friends were murdered at the Nova Massacre. Before we watch the unspeakable crimes, the pure eruption of evil that occurred on October 7th, I do want to speak about 3 things that give me, as an Israeli student on this campus, hope. Firstly is our Jewish institution. Seeing how Harvard Chabad taking a leadership role during the most difficult times, organizing lectures, events, vigils, and of course tonight screenings, is truly inspiring. Seeing how Rabbi Hirschy and Elkie personally care about us as students and think their absolute commitment to the Jewish people gives me hope. Secondly are the adults, the professors and alumni who simply care and had the moral clarity to say what seems obvious but wasn't so obvious on our campus, that the Holocaust-like massacre that occurred on October 7th is a moral crime. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, is the Jewish students, our friends, those who had the moral courage to say what they think, to condemn the massacre, to stand with Israel, and to express their opinions. In a culture, in a student environment, where canceling students that you disagree with might be the norm rather than engaging in productive conversation, your work and ability to express what you think in order to create a better Harvard, a safer Harvard for all, makes me hopeful. I am excited and delighted to introduce the founder and president of Harvard Chabad, our leader, Rabbi Hirschy Zarchi.
Thank you, Nim. It's no secret in our community that I resisted the opportunity to host tonight's screening from the IDF. However, when our friend Bill Ackman called to say how strongly he and the ambassador believed that this was important and necessary, I was convinced. Reflecting on what I would describe as Holocaust-like denial of the atrocities of October 7th, a film that I thought no one should ever have to see, increasingly seems like one that everyone must see. Certainly, those who teach, publish, work in public policy, and are active in leadership and influence can play an important role in ensuring that Israel has the support it needs to defeat an enemy hell-bent on killing its children, its parents, and its elderly, including Holocaust survivors. Judaism is a faith that honors the sanctity of all human life. In fact, there's nothing more sacred and nothing of more value than the life of a human. We are taught that life of all people are of infinite value and can never be measured. We even learn about the value of life by the way we honor the dead. And that's the moral quandary of showing this film. It would be considered a desecration of the dead and of the living to watch this kind of violation of life, a manifestation of the divine. And the only basis for an exception is if it will help us preserve life. And it's for that reason that we're bringing you this evening's program. A word about the current experience of the Jewish community currently. This past Friday, I received the following note from a member of the Graduate School of the Arts and Sciences. She writes, "I've been rather isolated since the war broke out. I worry about my friends in Israel. However, it's been frightening to be Jewish with everything that we have been seeing." A few hours later, over Shabbat dinner this past Friday night, a leader on this campus of high authority shared with me that a Jewish student confided to him that he looks in the mirror before he leaves his dorm room. Why? He wants to ensure that there's nothing in his physical appearance that gives away the fact that he's Jewish. Let that sink in. At Harvard College in 2023, Jewish students are frightened. And they ensure that they don't give their identity away because they're afraid. When babies are beheaded in Israel by Hamas terrorists, when young women are raped and then burnt alive, and the world makes excuses and doesn't condemn and express outrage and come together as a global family to eliminate this evil. One manifestation is that on college campuses across America, they call for a global jihad. Most recently, we heard expressions of confidence in their ability to succeed with global jihad. In their words, because it's about numbers and about volume, and we outnumber them. To them I say, yes, you do in fact outnumber us. But that was true throughout history. The enemies of the Jewish people who tried to annihilate us always outnumbered us. But we are still here, and we will always be here. So get used to it. We will continue to fight for the sanctity of all human life, for freedom of all people, to oppose racism and bigotry of any kind. We will continue to embrace a vision of life that calls us to be ambassadors of love, of light, of justice, of compassion, of truth, of kindness and hospitality. And we will prevail, because truth ultimately always does. We thank our many friends in the non-Jewish community who are here with us today and have been with us over the last 59 days. You are what we call in our tradition the righteous Gentiles of the world. You inspire the Jewish people, and you have from our very first days. And you are beacons of light to a world in times of darkness and in good times. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your humanity. It's appreciated in more ways than you'll ever know. We are honored this evening to have with us Mr. Gilad Erdan, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. We are so grateful to you, Mr. Ambassador, for taking of your precious time to travel to Boston and share your message with our community. Ambassador Erdan will be introduced by Bill Ackman. And before I turn it over to Bill, allow me to say the following. Bill, I know I speak for Jewish students at Harvard, for our alumni, and for parents around the world. In fact, I know I speak for hundreds of thousands of college students across the college campuses of America and indeed across the world, as well as for parents, and I would say indeed for the Jewish people everywhere. You have emerged as a voice of courage and of confidence that has elevated Jewish consciousness and Jewish pride everywhere. I'm honored to call you a friend and a partner, and together, I look forward to continuing to build a majestic and glorious Jewish life in Harvard for generations to come. What a powerful example you've set for all of us. Friends, in a moment, you're going to be hearing from one of the most well-known and successful investors in the world, and who has emerged as now as one of the most admired and beloved of our people for his fearless courage and his dedication to our people, but to all of humanity. And that, your example reminds me of the words of the father of the founder of Hasidism. The Baal Shem Tov was a young boy when his father passed away, and in his last will and testament, he said to him the following. He said to his son before his passing, please remember two things. Love all people as you love yourself, and fear no one but the Almighty. And it's that winning combination, that formula of fearlessness that allows your love to shine throughout the world and your concern for all humanity. Friends, it's for me an honor to introduce my friend, the legendary Harvard alumnus, a member of the class of '88 and the HBS class of '92, Mr. Bill Ackman. If I can, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Bill's sister, Jean Ackman, who's here with her husband, Max Rosen. Yeah, I'll do it. This is important for us on a very personal basis because Andrew, a member of the class of '22, was a member of the Harvard Chabad family. But you know how you met Andrew? It was another friend of ours, Bill's daughter, Eloise, a member of the class of '20, who brought him over as a freshman. So another thank you to the family.
So that's by far the nicest introduction I've ever received, but unfortunately I had such a challenging time. I consider myself one of the most fortunate people in the world in pretty much every way, and I also feel a responsibility associated with good fortune, and so I'm really happy I can help. An emotional evening, and I was trying to think of what to say, and a lot of what has been said are words I would share, and have been said beautifully already, so I won't repeat them. But I remember one of my earlier childhood memories, my sister will remember this, is I think I was 10 or 11, and there was a film that came out on Channel 11. There was a thing called a channel back then, and it was a film about the Holocaust. And I remember our parents just talking at the dinner table about whether we should see it or not, and they chose to show this film to us. So we watched a film about the Holocaust, a graphic film about the Holocaust. My parents said, look, it's important for you to understand. So, and that's why we're here. So I was in Miami, and I went to bed late, and I saw on my phone, on Twitter, the initial rocket attack at 12:30 at night, and this did not look like a typical rocket attack. And I went to sleep a little bit concerned. I woke up early, gravely concerned. I woke up and the war was underway. And I was away for the weekend for a tennis tournament that I was hosting. And I immediately got on a plane and headed home. Married to the most spectacular woman in the world. I can say that. It's actually accurate, but her husband. She's an Israeli, and I just knew, as much as I was feeling this, she would have a profound, this would affect her in a profound way, and it has affected us. And it's so easy for us to be here, but I think the Israeli people, the Jewish community, in the rest of the world, is kind of putting our arms around Israel right now. And as I like to say, from everything bad comes some good. And good will come from this. One thing we haven't spoken about tonight is the Palestinian people. And when I was in my early 20s, I went to Israel. A guy named Marty Peretz, who was my Harvard professor, asked me to get involved in something called the Jerusalem Foundation. And at ripe old age of 30, I became chairman of the Jerusalem Foundation. I don't know how that happened. but it led to my going to Israel a number of times. And Teddy Kollek, who was mayor back then, one of his big initiatives was creating peaceful coexistence. And so I met members of the Palestinian community, and I worked with the foundation to support that community. And I met a Palestinian activist many years ago named Lumna, and we keep in touch. And we keep in touch in the midst of a war. And it gives you perspective and understanding. And so I feel horrible for the untold number of lives that are going to be lost, the innocent lives. I don't shed a tear for a terrorist. But thank you for coming tonight. Very important evening. We'll all remember this. Let me introduce Gilad. Being ambassador to the UN from Israel today is not the easiest job in the world. And Israel is very fortunate to have Gilad representing it in this very important body. With that, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Bill, for your introduction. First of all, I would like, of course, to thank Rabbi Zarchi for hosting us, inviting us, and for all of your important activities. I want to acknowledge my friend's presence, the Consul General of Israel, Meron Reuben. And of course, I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. So friends, tonight will be the first screening of Hamas's atrocities at an Ivy League university. I came from New York to be here this evening because screening this footage at Harvard, one of the leading academic institutions in the world, is of the utmost importance for the State of Israel. This bastion of higher education and leadership is supposed to set the bar of decency and morality as high as it can go. Yet, following October 7th, it has become clear that regarding Israel's war against pure evil, as President Biden called it, sheer evil, Harvard's moral bar is non-existent. For a school that puts veritas, truth, above all, this is particularly shameful. From the university's initial silence following the attack to extended silence following the pro-terror voices, and to the shameful response to the assault of Jewish students, Harvard has become dangerous for Jews. Dangerous. Rather than becoming an incubator for future leaders, Harvard, sadly, has become an incubator for terror supporters. And if you don't believe me, ask your Jewish friends or colleagues. Tonight, you will understand what horrors your university administrators have been silent about. What atrocities President Gay did not immediately and strongly condemn. What depravity some students and faculty justify and even extol. Once you see this footage, it will change the way you view the Middle East. It will change the way you view the war in Gaza. And it will likely change the way you see your peers who stand in solidarity with the Hamas monsters. What you're about to witness is barbarity and cruelty, the likes of which you have never seen before. Hamas' savagery, murdering and beheading babies, raping women, burning families alive, could only be carried out because Hamas, just like the Nazis, views all Israelis, all Jews, as insects that must be exterminated. They even joyfully filmed their crimes, solely to strike terror in the heart of every Israeli in order to drive us out of Israel in fear. And that is why they intentionally attack our home front, attack our civilians. They know that they cannot defeat the IDF, our military, on the conventional battlefield. Despite the falsehoods being spread here, Hamas is a genocidal jihadist organization whose goal is annihilating Israel and Jews. They do not hide it. It's written in their charter, by the way. Hamas is not looking for a solution to the conflict or a dialogue. For Hamas, from the river to the sea is a literal action plan to annihilate the one and only Jewish state. It is against this savagery that Israel is defending itself. A terror organization that proclaims October 7th was just the beginning, and that they will repeat such a massacre again and again and again until Israel is destroyed. I will be very clear. Israel's mission in Gaza is not a retaliation, is not a response to October 7th, not at all. It's only about ensuring that such atrocities never happen again. And the only way, it's very sad because no Israeli mother wants her son to enter Gaza, but the only way to accomplish this and restore security to Israelis and Gazans alike is by eradicating Hamas. There is no other option. A ceasefire, and we hear a lot, many who calls for a ceasefire. A ceasefire means allowing Hamas to continue its reign of terror in Gaza, which means a future of terror for both Israelis and Gazans. Completing this mission is the only way to free Gaza. Friends, although we are here tonight to bear witness, watching the horrors is merely the first step. The second step, and the more important one, is to take action. Harvard's indifference to Hamas's atrocities facilitated clear-cut support for Hamas on campus. But this vocal support for baby murders spawned more than just Israel hatred. It also bred Jew hatred. A tsunami of anti-Semitism has swept across Harvard. Sadly, this phenomenon is not unique to Harvard. It is occurring at leading institutions of higher education around the world. Elite universities are now molding terror supporters, as opposed to principled future leaders, and this should terrify us all. We need your help. We need your action. It is our shared duty to ensure that the violence screened tonight does not continue to be a catalyst for more violence. Veritas is meaningless if you keep it to yourself. I urge you all to spread the truth. I urge you all to take part in ensuring a brighter future. I now want to welcome my friend, Lieutenant Colonel Amnon Shefler of the IDF spokesperson unit to say a few words. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Read. Identify yourself over the map.
Shalom. Thank you for coming. I graduated this past spring from the mid-career program at the Kennedy School, and I definitely hope to be here in reunions and in very different circumstances, and not under these very tragic times. I deeply appreciate you choosing to come, to bear witness and to learn more about the horrific atrocities that were committed by Hamas on October 7th. No picture, no description, or even footage can do justice to the enormity of the horror. There's this too much carnage and too much pain. Yet, we must try. We must try to grasp the unfathomable so that when we can act to prevent it from ever happening again. On the morning of Shabbat, October 7th, Israelis woke up to the sound of sirens, warning us of incoming rocket attacks. And although we're sadly used to it, over the last decade we've had too many of those, and we've become accustomed to them. This attack felt different. My wife woke me up to the sound of a red alert. We rushed to take our 3-year-old daughter and our 1.5-year-old daughter to shelter. Right away, we had a feeling something was different. We had a feeling that the worst nightmare that we could think of would prove to be much better than the horrific reality that was about to befall both our people and our country. As Hamas fired hundreds of rockets across Israel, more than 3,000 Hamas terrorists infiltrated dozens of Israeli communities and tortured, murdered, or kidnapped every civilian they could find, including women, including children, including babies and the elderly. They wiped out all families and generations of families. Hamas terrorists threw grenades into homes and bomb shelters where dozens of people were huddled together, trying to defend each other. When families were able to hold their safe room closed, Hamas torched their homes, forcing them to choose between being burned alive or falling into the terrorist hands. Hamas terrorists also raided a music festival, using RPGs and automatic weapons to gun down over 360 young civilians and taking dozens of them hostage. We now know that on that dark day, over 1,200 people were murdered, 5,400 are injured, and more than 239 people were taken hostage, and dozens are still missing. Part of the reason that we do not know the exact numbers and that there are still people missing 60 days after the attack is that the effort to identify bodies that were so mutilated and burned is still ongoing. The only way to grasp some of the severity and the scale of brutality is to see some of it with your own eyes, to bear witness. With that in mind, we, the IDF, have put together 46 minutes of uncensored footage from the attacks. Some of this footage comes from the Israeli security agencies, first responders, car dash cams, and CCTV. But much of this footage comes directly from Hamas, who wear body cams while carrying out their heinous crimes in order to wreak more terror, and in some cases, even use the victims' phones to live stream their gruesome acts to the victims' family and friends. Hamas wanted the world to know. They wanted the world to know what they were doing because they were and are proud of fulfilling their mission to kill Jews. They wanted the world to know and see what they did. Before watching this footage, it's important to understand that the footage cannot and does not show all the horrifics that occurred. It shows less than 10% of the numbers that were murdered. Less than 10%. It does not show how Hamas systematically planned to murder as many people as possible. It does not show how dozens of young Israelis were put in rows, hands tied behind their back, and shot in the head or burned alive. It does not show the extent of the torture before being murdered or the abuse and mutilation of bodies after. It does not show the rape or the sexual assault that occurred. It does not show babies and children being murdered. It cannot grasp the entirety of the cruelty and horror. It also cannot grasp the experience. I sadly needed to. Visiting these decimated, once beautiful communities, these massacre sites, and speaking to the survivors and victims and families and confronting, touching, smelling the destruction. In the weeks following the attacks, there have been efforts underway to call into question what happened on October 7th. Efforts to cast doubt on the barbarity of who Hamas really is. History has taught us that bearing witness, along with sharing and documenting the stories, is one of the most important ways to counter such denial and distortions. And for that, I thank you for being here, for bearing witness to this very difficult and impossible thing to grasp. As a reminder, recording or taking photos is strictly prohibited. This is also the time for those that are with cameras inside, please, for you to leave and take the cameras out. You're of course permitted and invited to share afterwards what you saw, and writing and talking. This is out of respect for the victims and their families. I know it's very difficult, and I thank you for being here.